Call to order the September 2020 legislative meeting of the Media Borough Council. Please stand and join me in the flag to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you everyone for joining us. It has been quite a long time. It has been almost exactly 6 months since we've last had the opportunity to have in-person meetings among the Media Borough Council members and for us to meet with the public. To those of you who come out today, thank you very much. Because of the health crisis that we are in, we have a few bows to the realities of that crisis. One, anyone who is in this room must be wearing a mask. And by wearing a mask, I mean in such a way that it covers both your mouth as well as your nose at all times. At times you might need to adjust, as I am doing, but please adjust away. No one is going to think poorly of it. Secondly, we do not have microphones as we normally do because microphone can be a point of transmission of the virus. Instead, we have a microphone attached to the camera at the back of the room. As a result, we need to speak a lot more loudly than we normally do. Otherwise, your words of wisdom will not be captured and spread into the ether. As another bow to the situation, we ask that if you do have any comments that you wish to make, that you restrict those comments to no more than 3 minutes. If there are comments on a common topic, please be mindful that council is listening to you, it is taking note of what you're saying, and that you do not need to repeat a point that was made by somebody else. I promise you we'll get it. Another slight change is that those who are devotees of our meetings, and there are a few of us, as you know, we have 2 sessions of public comment and privilege of the floor. Now, under the laws of Pennsylvania, we are not required to take comment from anyone who is not a member of our community, whether business or a resident. But as a matter of practice, Media Borough has been very liberal in listening to the voices of persons who might not live in our community, but feel that they are part of our community. We're not going to change that approach tonight. However, as to the 2 sessions of public comment and privilege of the floor, we ask that the first session, which will begin before our portion of the agenda, be restricted to action items only. So if it's an item on the agenda and you wish to speak to it, then please, you may do so before we begin going through the motion, going through our motions. If you have something that you would like to comment on that is not on not action item, then you may do so, but at the end of the action items that we have on our agenda. So, we have a couple of housekeeping, with those things in mind, we have a couple of housekeeping matters. We had a workshop meeting this past month. Do I hear a motion to approve those meeting minutes as submitted?
So moved.
I'll take that as a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the August 6, 2020 workshop meeting minutes as submitted, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes unanimously. In case of folks who are wondering where that voice came, sort of at the tail end, it came from the phone over here. We have a member of council, Lisa Johnson, who is attending by phone, which she's permitted to do. We have a second set of meeting minutes. That's for our council meeting from last month. We have a motion to approve those as submitted.
Make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
Second.
Yeah. Motion and second. Do I hear a call for discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the August 2020 council meeting minutes as submitted, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes unanimously. I caught that, Lisa. All right, now we come to public comment and privilege of the floor. If there's anybody who wishes to address an item that is currently on, action item that is currently on our agenda, please stand up, speak as loudly as you can, and comment or ask. We do not have any takers, so we'll move along. Engineers report. Mr. Matheson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a few updates. I wanted to touch on the 2020 road program. The paving contractor is out there. Mellon Street has been repaved, Emerald Street has been repaved, and there are still 5 streets remaining to be paved. And for those that are listening at home, in the event that you leave your car out there during the evening, it may be towed. So please be mindful of signage in the areas of Veterans Square from Front to Jasper, Monroe Street from 3rd to 4th, Jefferson Street from Jackson to Monroe, Church Street from Franklin to Jefferson, and Mott Street. Mott Street is an alley between Vernon and Providence Road. The contractor has about another week and a half of work to do out there, and that will conclude the road program. There have been the installation of the ADA ramps prior to the repaving of the streets. So I wanted to bring that up to the council's attention. I did submit a written report this evening with a series of updates on projects, but in the light of the fact that I'm wearing a mask and I'm trying to streamline the meeting as quickly as possible, unless there are any specific questions about projects in town, I'll keep my report brief.
Anyone have any questions for our engineer? I do have a quick question for you, Kevin. There's been a lot of work associated with aqua and new piping on the eastern part of town. For those folks who have been looking at heavy equipment for the past several weeks, any idea of when it is that that road equipment will be vanished?
They will be out there for at least another 2 weeks. So that they still have a fair amount of work to do, and then even after the large equipment vanishes, there will still be the repaving of certain sections. So in addition to the road program paving that we are doing as a borough, Aqua will be doing either partial or full restoration of the streets. So it's going to look like a construction project out there for some time.
And I will assume that Aqua will notify homeowners on those streets that have to be repaved in sufficient time that they'll get their cars out of the way.
Yes. Correct.
So folks at home, be on the lookout for either a door hanger or perhaps some other type of notice, because there might be repaving of those streets after Aqua finishes up its project on the eastern side of town. All right, let's move along then to the solicitor's report. Mr. Scott.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't have a report, but I will be asking for an executive session after the meeting to discuss a potential real estate transaction.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Scott at this time? We'll move along then. The mayor's report, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, during last month, we had 497 incidents in the borough, and I have 2 proclamations this month. I'm just going to read the first paragraph of each. Light the night for fallen firefighters. Can everybody hear me? Okay? All right. Whereas every October, the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation sponsors the National Firefighter Memorial Weekend. The official national tribute to those firefighters who died in the line of duty in the previous year. In 2017, the foundation created Light of the Night for Fallen Firefighters to recognize the 25th anniversary of the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation and the National Memorial Weekend. So that's one of them. The other one is the Jason House. As many of you know, Philip Jason was the founder of the Korean government. He lived here for 26 years in media while he formed the Korean government. He was to go back in 1947 to become its first president, but he was ill. But he was the first Korean medical doctor. He was the first Korean civilian. And there's now going to be, or is, a museum in media in Upper Province called the Borough. So they're having on October 10th a celebration of the opening of this new museum. They hope to get quite a few students to go through it with this very historic event that spent 26 years of his life in media. So that's it.
Do you have anything else for us, Mr. Mayor? Good. Glad to hear it. Does anyone have any questions for the mayor at this time? We'll move along then to the council committee reports. First up, Properties, Public Works, and Fire, Councilman Robinson.
Yes, a relatively short report, both of them are reflecting the ability to place our votes in a ballot box this year. I'll give a little background. I mean, recognizing that we're in the middle of a pandemic, and we are encouraging all people to come out and vote and to try to ensure as much safety as possible. If an individual is having a absentee ballot or another type of ballot and does not have the ability or time to mail it, the county is placing ballot boxes in, I believe they're attempting to put it in each municipality within the county. The agreement, which is referenced on my agenda, I will defer to our solicitor, but I believe it's basically a very generic vanilla agreement that just says that between the borough and the county, we're going to allow the ballot box to be placed here. Second will be the location. They are looking for a location that has cameras, so that for safety purposes, and is also ADA compliant. The location which we have at the borough is at the rear entrance to Borough Hall, right through the back parking lot. That's where we intend on placing the ballot box. So with that, I will make a motion that we enter into the license agreement for the ballot drop box between the Borough Media and the County of Delaware.
Thank you. The motion, and we have a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Mr. Scott, any comment?
No, I mean, this is an agreement that, gets distributed by the county to all 49 municipalities. Most of them are assigned. I'm aware of one that's not, but otherwise every municipality seems to be entering into it. It is revocable on 30 days if you ever change your mind, or on 30 days notice. So.
All right, so I'll call the question. All those in favor of the Borough Media entering into a ballot drop box license agreement as outlined by Councilman Robinson, please say aye.
Yes.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes unanimously.
And I'll make a motion that we place the drop box as we're referenced at the back entrance to the Media Borough complex. And that's in form of a motion.
Motion's been made. Is there a second on the motion?
Second.
There is. Any discussion on the motion? I'll call the question then. All those in favor of locating a ballot drop box in the back end of Borough Hall, as specified by Councilman Robinson, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes unanimously.
Try to shorten the meeting tonight, Mr. President. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Councilman Robinson at this time? Hearing none, we'll move along then to Lisa Johnson, who is present telephonically. Lisa, MBA, Historic, Public Safety, and Civil Service.
Okay, thank you. One item on my agenda is the resignation of Warren Quo from the NBA board. His term expires at the end of the year, and he has told us that he has many time and scheduling commitments, so he can no longer participate on the board. So I'd like to make a motion to accept, regretfully, Warren's resignation from the board.
Second.
Motion is made. It has been seconded. Any discussion concerning the motion?
Just one question. How long did Mr. Quo serve on the board?
You know, I wondered that myself, but I don't actually know, but it's counted in decades, not years.
Yeah, I believe so.
So it's in the early 90s, late 80s.
He's been remarkably dedicated to the MPA. And I think
Yes, he is.
noted.
Motion has been made and seconded to accept the resignation, regretfully, of Warren Quo from the Media Business Authority for a term that expires at the end of this year. All those in favor of accepting the resignation, please say aye.
Yes.
Aye. Those opposed,
Aye.
please say nay. The motion passes unanimously.
Okay, but that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have questions for Councilwoman Lisa Johnson? Hearing none, we move along to Councilwoman Amy Johnson, Fair Trade Farmers Market, Shade Tree, and the Environmental Advisory Council.
Thank you. I'll make this brief. There's just one thing on my agenda. Also, a resignation. Scott Whitman from the Environmental Advisory Council. Term expiring 12/31/20. We're sad to see Scott go. He has been the brainchild, or one of the brainchildren, of our Media Open Streets event, which unfortunately we will need to cancel this year. But we're really hoping that we'll be able to continue that next year. So Scott has, with all of the responsibilities that come with COVID and having children at home and homeschooling, he just doesn't have the time to serve on EAC. So regretfully, I make the motion for the resignation of Scott Wood.
Second.
Motion is made and it has been seconded. Any discussion concerning the motion? Hearing no call for discussion, I will call the question. All those in favor of accepting regretfully the resignation of Scott Whitman from the Environmental Advisory Council for a term that ends at the end of this year, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Are there any questions from members of council for Councilman Heaney Johnson at this time?
Councilwoman Johnson, does Mr. Whitman intend to stay involved in the Media Open Streets event?
Absolutely.
Good.
That's a dog.
Thank you.
The Open Street event in 2021.
Yeah, whenever it can happen next.
Right. Next part of the agenda is mine. Before we begin, there are a couple of items that is my duty to announce. At the end of our last workshop meeting, a couple of weeks ago, we held an executive session in which we discussed a personnel matter as well as a litigation matter. I have two action items on my portion of the agenda. The first involves a fee schedule for electrical code review and inspection services. Anytime you have work done on your house, whether you're putting in a new box or you're putting in new electric, etc., there is an inspection involved. And the inspector, which is not borough employee, gets paid. In this case, it is, I apologize, should have this at the ready, but I did not. Here it is. It is United Inspection Agency. They've been with us for the past 12 years, and we've been very satisfied with them. Over those 12 years, they have not suggested that the fees were insufficient. They've come to us this year, they told us that their fees, our fees are now 12 years old, are really insufficient for the work that they do. And when you prorate the increase that we're looking at, it's roughly about 3% per year. And it gets us to rates that are consistent with our neighboring communities. We're borrowing for this. So the motion here is to pass Resolution 2020-42, which will update our unified fee schedule to include electrical code review and inspection service fees.
Okay.
And I make it a roll call.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor of approving resolution number 2020-42 to update unified fee schedule to include electrical code review and inspection service fee, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 2 is something that I'll leave to council's discretion because we haven't had a chance to talk about this. It's kind of a late-breaking item. There's a request that we tend to it tonight, but if council's uncomfortable doing so, then we can hold off until our next meeting. We've over the Media Borough prizes its brick sidewalks. We have a number of examples throughout the town. And they're wonderfully aesthetically, but if you're a homeowner, they can be a bear because they heave. And then the concern is with liability, somebody's tripping over a brick because of a tree root or because of frost heaves or what have you. The folks who have those brick sidewalks are required under our code to maintain them as brick. But we have over the past few years allowed stamped concrete in the form of brick to replace the brick sidewalk. So those of you who are familiar with media will recognize that out in front of our new library, our newish library, there is stamped concrete in the form of brick pavers, which looks quite nice and has stood up over the past number of years. And then more recently, we have permitted the substitution of stamped concrete for existing brick on 4th Street in front of the offices of the Domestic Abuse Project. That's been the past year or so. I think that is on East 4th Street, between Borough and Jackson. We have a request for the property owner at 320 West Front Street. What 320 West Front Street is just to the west of where the Santander Bank is at the corner of Front and Orange Street. So if you're walking west from Orange Street, you go past the Santander Bank on your left. The next building over is a law office, and they have brick sidewalks, and they would like to replace those brick sidewalks with stamped concrete in a brick pattern. So if council is satisfied based upon past practice that it is acceptable for this homeowner to do so, I'll make the motion, but if there's anybody here who feels that they'd like to talk about it at a workshop meeting, we can wait until next month.
No, let's do it now.
That was rather,
Well, you know, the brick sidewalks, I know you say you're proud of them, but if you walk around in heels, which I usually do, they cut you, it's really...
it's always good to think about what it's like to walk in somebody else's shoes. But the question is, everybody's uncomfortable, and we can hold it over until next month.
I'd be comfortable making a vote with the condition that the Community Development Committee consider, because we seem to be permitting these things, some sort of policy change so that it doesn't have to be so people understand what they can do and what they can't, instead of having it like one issue at a time.
Well, the CDC meets in person for the first time in 6 months this coming Tuesday. So, Karen, if you can add that to our agenda, we'll certainly take a look at that. Anybody else who would like to speak who's uncomfortable?
I have another point to make. It kind of goes along with what Sarah said. Not too long ago, several months ago, we received a petition from a person who was, I think, in a wheelchair bound. I mean, they led the petition, but the point was that we have a lot of difficulties on our sidewalks in meeting for people that are challenged in their physical movements. And brick, for all its loveliness, unless it's perfectly maintained, is certainly, because of our street trees, for instance, can be quite problematic.
Well, I did not hear any dissent from the notion of making a motion tonight. So I'll make a motion that we approve the request for removal of brick sidewalk at 320 West Front Street to be replaced by stamped concrete. And I think that it's fair to say that it would be subject to our engineer's approval.
Sounds good. I'll second that motion.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any more discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I was going to read it.
Aye.
I guess should we say with the condition on CDC discussing a revision of the policy?
I don't know if we can make it conditional on that. Certainly have our commitment that we'll discuss.
All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Yes.
Aye.
And those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes unanimously.
I have one announcement. It concerns tomorrow night. The Meeting Arts Council is having a movie fright night. It's kind of a drive-in theater type deal tomorrow night at Aristotle Farms, which is over 320 Nigger Right, and keep going almost till you get to 926 around Duffer's Pub. Right, right? Well, I don't know why I'm looking at you all.
Past Gradieville, but those pulled up over Gradieville, so out there, past.
So the Arts Council holds a film festival every spring.
Yeah.
Like, this was to be their 10th anniversary film festival. However, COVID intervened, and as a result, the film festival did not move forward. But typically, at the film festival, there is one night that is set aside for scary movies. And those scary movies will be played tomorrow night at Aristotle Farms. So if you're of the mind to get a little of the jeebers scared out of you, that will be the place to be tomorrow.
Okay, so now, what time?
I don't
I
know
know,
the
it's
time.
8:30, we're going. It's $25 a car, and you can get in at 7:30, your car, and it starts at 8:30.
Thank you.
So bring folks that you know in your car,
Yeah.
and you can split the cost.
Oh, yes.
All right then, so unless there are any questions for me, we'll move along to Councilman Kevin Boyer, Recreation Board of Health.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just have a few brief announcements. Something I brought up at the workshop. We are looking into getting a tennis ball recycling container at the tennis court. Maybe we can use that. There was an individual interested in collecting these tennis balls and so they can be recycled, and we are looking into that. Paul's been communicating with her, and once they find a suitable container, then they will put it by the tennis court, and then we can collect tennis balls that way. The only other thing I want to mention was that we call them shade sales that usually go up over the top lot have not been up this year, and I think that was partially due to Ralph's retirement and the fact that they are worn out. So Paula is in the process of looking for new ones for next year, so those of you who use the top lot, there will be some shade, but not until the spring when we get new ones made and put those up. So we are in the process of getting that. As I said, they never made them up this year, so I apologize for that, but we'll have nice new ones for next year, and then we'll be doing the shade there. And that's my report. That's all I have to offer.
Thank you. Are there questions for Mr. Boyer at this time? Hearing none, we'll move along to Finance and Library. Councilman Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I actually find I have a number of things to discuss tonight, so I apologize that it may take a few minutes. The first item, and I believe we'll have on the telephone now, two experts that will help us should you have detailed questions. This is about, we're going to borrow some money. We intend, if the vote is positive tonight, we're going to borrow some money. And let me explain why. We have a lot of capital projects that we have begun, expensive things that last a long time, 20 to 30 years once they're built. They cost millions of dollars, for which we've received a lot of grant money. So we're not having to pay 100% of it, but the grants have certain time periods in which they have to be expended. So we're sort of on the hook to spend some money. We have the money in the bank to do it. But when COVID came, we realized that it might be more prudent for us, given the uncertainty going forward, to borrow money to cover those long-term expenses and pay it back over the life of those projects. It's a kind of standard municipal finance approach. And we're helped right now by the fact that money is incredibly cheap to borrow. The interest rates are very low. So our staff, with the help of Jamie Schlesinger from yes, thank you. Yeah,
Not the law firm, the advisor.
yeah, that's right. He solicited bids from banks to do two things. Refinance money we've already borrowed, which is about $3.5 million, and then to borrow new money, about $3 million to finance those projects I was talking about. The reason we're refinancing the old money is we can get new money cheaper than what we borrowed before. So it's less expensive. The banks responded, and those experts looked through the various proposals and recommended to us, to the Finance Committee, and we're going to recommend to you TD Bank's proposal for a 10-year loan at 1.15%, with no penalties for prepayment whatsoever. It's a completely flexible payment plan. Mr. Seaman, is there anything else you'd like to add to that? Oh, one other point. For that $6 million, we're going to have to pay $400,000 in interest over the life of the loan. So you can see it's a relatively inexpensive money. Any of those of you that have ever seen a mortgage statement once a year, you might understand. Mr. Seaman.
Well, the current loan in 2024 becomes variable, number one. Number two, the new money to cover the old loan, we're paying at about 3.5 basis points cheaper than we're at the current loan. So it is a good deal for us.
And basis points are percentage points, right?
Right. So instead of, yeah.
100 basis points means 1%.
Thank you. That oftentimes throws off the layperson. But anyway, so that's the recommendation of the Finance Committee. There's a number of technical ordinances in the package that you'll need to pass tonight. Mr. Scott, I hope you'll help me with them if you so concur. So at this point, I'll just open it up to discussion. Otherwise, I'll recommend several resolutions.
So, I'm sorry, have you made a motion here?
I've made a motion.
Is there a second on the motion?
Second.
Is there there is. So now if there's any discussion,
I think a lot of the rate which this borough received, a lot of that rate is due to the fact of our finance group, Mr. Seaman, Jeff Smith, if he was around still. The rate of 1.15 is a ridiculously good rate. The bank's only going to give that to somebody who they have extreme confidence in and recognizes that they will have no issue with repaying that debt. So this 1.15 really needs to be looked at and applauded to our staff and our finance committee. And I need to abstain on all these votes.
You're going to second it.
I can second it, but we can't vote.
well, we've got that, Sarah also seconded so that there isn't any technical complications.
Okay.
Any other questions concerning the motion?
Just to be clear, this is a motion to enact the debt ordinance, is that correct, Mr. Williamson?
Yes, I believe this is the general Bob. Which one is it, Bob?
It's just, the only thing we need tonight is to adopt the debt ordinance, which is, I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me.
I think it's this ordinance 1142.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right.
That is the motion I made, to adopt that general ordinance 1142 as I explained.
All right, unless there's any other comment or question, I'll call the question. All those in favor of adopting ordinance number 1142 of 2020 with regard to authorizing the sale and issuance of general obligation note as specified by Councilman Williamson, please say aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes unanimously.
Let me say I appreciate the words of confidence from Councilman Robinson because he is a technical expert, a professional in the field, so it's good to hear him say that. Related to the fine work of our finance committee, I received tonight a paper copy of our audit report for this year, which was completely clean, which is very nice. It's a work of 3 or 4 years of cleaning up a few technical things, a few technical records that were minor problems in the past, but it's completely clean now. So I congratulate Blaine Jordan and everyone else in the finance committee, especially Mike, for that audit. The next big item I have relates to our annual budget, which I'll discuss first. You might wonder what's happened to our budget with the pandemic. I'll say this, our tax income, our tax revenue has stayed pretty much as expected. But one of our significant line items actually is parking fees. And as you might expect, that's gone down quite a bit, hundreds of thousands of dollars. But because right now we haven't been spending at quite the rate we expect, our revenues are still ahead of expenses by about 10%. That relates to this next item, which is passing, which is one of the single biggest checks we write each year. And this is to pay, put adequate funds into our pensions for our non-uniform and police officers. The larger of the two pensions is for the police officers. This year, the total, and Mr. Seaman, if I got this wrong, please correct me, is $787,000.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Some years I used to get it wrong, and Mr. Smith would have to correct me. But that's how much we're going to write now, $716,000 of that is for the police.
Sorry, Councilman, the 786 was the new MMO that was brought in 2021. For this year, the MMO is $949,000 for uniform, and then 50,000 for non-uniform.
Okay, so the check, okay.
We're paying for 20.
I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself. So this one I was thinking, this was the check we're writing this year. The check we're writing this year is actually larger. It's 980. I thought it was closer to the million.
Yeah, but what tonight you're doing is
2020.
reading into the minutes what the numbers are for 2021. Yeah, the idea is that you get it into your minutes now so that when you do the budgeting process, you know how much to budget for 2021.
I didn't realize how clever I was being. But there I go. But the real number, the check we're writing for this year is closer to $2 million between the two. And about 90% of that is for the police, and about 10% is for the public works staff, which is also unionized. One thing for you to know, because you might read about distressed pensions across Pennsylvania. Know that Media Boroughs is not distressed whatsoever. The non-uniform pension is at 100% of where it should be, which is very rare. And the police pension is right now about 85% of where it should be, which has been an upward trend. We've got hit with a lot of disabilities, and a couple of years ago, which knocked it down to about 75. We've been slowly building it back again to, I believe it's 85 that I have done. I'm remembering that right.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. So we're in good shape. Okay, so I'm adopting the 2021 minimal municipal obligation. Those numbers I read before, $787,000. I make that in the form of a motion. Second.
This is a question for our solicitor. Mr. Scott, would you prefer that we have two separate motions?
No, but I don't know, but can you break out between uniform?
Yes, I'd like to know.
One motion's fine, but can you break out the numbers so the minutes show the separate MMOs for uniform and non-uniform?
Okay.
I have the breakout.
Yeah.
Yes, let's hear
Can you just
it.
read that for the record?
Yeah, for the uniform, it's 715,380, and for the non-uniform, 71,168. 830. Like Linda said.
715, 830?
Correct.
Okay.
Uniform,
Right, and 71, 168 for non-uniform.
Correct.
All right.
Next year, we prepared, you were technically accurate on this. This one was frozen. But you get the point. I got the larger stuff right, not the technical stuff. Okay, the next thing I wanted to do.
Is there a second on the motion?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of adopting the 2021 minimal municipal obligation for non-uniform employees in the amount of $71,168 and the minimum municipal obligation for police officers in the amount of $715,830, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes unanimously.
Okay. Move on to another piece of information. Once a year, we get presented a report. It's called the Pension Committee. This is a report on how well all that money that we were just talking about is doing in the various investments that they make for it. It's in a fund managed by the Pennsylvania Society for, what's the PSAB stand for?
Pennsylvania State Association of Boroughs.
Thank you very much. It's the State Association of Boroughs, and they have a separate financial arm that manages this money. We're one of the largest participants in the fund, because we have about $25 million in it. I think that makes us about 10% of the total fund. It has over 200 municipalities in it. They expected to get about a 7 to 8% return this year. Remarkably enough, they're not going to do that well, but they expect to get 3 or 4% return. And the reason why is that stocks like Apple and Google and Amazon are booming, and everything else is flattening out, and it all sorts of evens out, so the return is sort of okay. It's not as bad as we expected. It could have been, and it looks like it's been a pretty solid return, and that's because the money is conservatively managed. Okay. The next motion I have is for the payment of bills to August. From the general fund, we drew $227,327.30. From the recreation fund, $63.01. From the liquid fuels fund, $94,930. And from the capital fund, $94,824.39. I move approval of August's bills.
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second. Now the time to ask some questions. Mr. Seaman, the numbers I have on the agenda are slightly different.
The one in your folder is correct.
Okay.
I was instructed to use the ones in the folder because there was some small discrepancy with some other numbers. One thing I actually got right.
I looked at the one that was emailed the other day.
Yeah.
Okay, so, any other question concerning the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the payment of bills for the month of August as specified by Councilman Williamson, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes unanimously.
I have two announcements. They'll be quick. One, as I've been saying every chance I have in public, please consider making a special gift to the Media Providence Library this year. They've been hit very hard by COVID. Their biggest fundraiser is a book sale. They can't do it. They simply can't do it. That's about a $60,000 loss for a small budget. And they're open. They have to pay their employees. So go to the website, please figure out a way to give them a special gift this year. They could really use it. Last thing is just a small thing for you all to know. I got appointed to the Delaware County Park and Recreation Board as an at-large member, serving until 2025. So that to the extent that media might have interests vis-a-vis park and recreation matters that would relate to the county, I might be able to help. That's all.
Thank you. Is
I'm
any-
sorry, say that again.
I got appointed to a board, you know, like a monopoly thing, a chance card. I got the Delaware County Park and Rec Board.
I just want to make sure I was hearing you right.
Are there any questions for Councilman Williamson at this time? Hearing none, we'll move on to Personnel, Public Relations, and Historical Archives.
It's like this thank Janie Schellinger from PFM and Sky Nichols from Dilworth for joining us on the call, and they're still on there. They can sign off now.
Thank you, folks.
Great.
You get your get out of jail free card.
Have a good day.
Good night.
Thank you.
Have a good night, everyone. Bye.
Okay.
All right, Sarah.
So actually, I can't speak up. I've got a difficulty. So if this is not loud enough, okay, good. I have only wanted to talk about some of the publicity we received. This is my latest WHYY connections, and I'm happy to look at this delightful thing. Meet Bobby Broad. He's a new news person at WHYY, youngster, and he's a resident of New York, so you may want to check it out. Also, we've been getting requests for the archives have been getting requests to share some information and history, photos and articles, and even though they haven't met, Adam has been interacting with people, and as soon as we can get things like from the library, we will definitely get some more items in. And that's all I'm going to talk about today.
Thank you, Councilwoman Dixon. Does anyone have any questions from council for Councilwoman Dixon at this time? Hearing none, we now have public comment and privilege of the floor.
Before that starts, Mr. President, I do have a question for Solicitor Scott. Councilman Robinson asked me a good question. He asked, aren't we supposed to adopt or have an ordinance for a bond council? Do we not need a...
That's in the ordinance. We've
Got
got
to, okay,
Yeah.
thank you. That's all.
All right, any other questions?
That's all right.
Hearing none, we now have an opportunity for public comment and privilege of the floor. We began this meeting with a series with a discussion of a number of modifications to our normal approach that we take at our legislative meeting. And we reserved any comments about non-agenda items for this, the second public comment and privilege of the floor opportunity that we traditionally have at our meeting. So if there's anybody here who wishes to address something that is not an action item on our agenda, now is the time to do it. Stand up, tell us who you are, and where you live. Speak loud.
Very loudly. Very loudly. Hi, I'm Susan Palmer. I live in media. I'm here with the ad hoc committee about Officer Carroll. We are here to support council. And I'm going to be followed by Ms. Tammy Graham, Ms. Carol Glover, who are going to read our statement. I'm going to read to you the breakdown of the signatories we've gotten on the safety statement by their roles as stakeholders in the community. And I'll be happy to read each name aloud. There are 60 of them, if you wish.
We're good.
Yeah, they're available in Delco Times. Okay, so we have 60 signatories, 11 are nonprofit leaders, 10 are business owners, 9 are educators, 9 are professionals, 6 are Rose Tree Media School District parents, 4 are community advocates and residents, 3 are clergy members, 3 are congregational members, 3 are elected officials, and 3 are political party leaders. Each of us has our reasons for being here. I just want to state mine really quickly. I have no desire to castigate Officer Carroll. As a retired teacher, I very much understand the stresses of a profession that is constantly monitored, and I prefer to meet people halfway. My purpose in being part of this presentation is to ensure that the officers who give their word to protect the citizens of media and are therefore empowered to use lethal weapons understand that their actions must be governed by the law and not their emotions. So that's my part. Ms. Tammy's going to be next. I'm sorry?
Address.
The address. Oh, 402 North Olive Street.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Kimber Graham. I live at 4th and Olive. My family's been in media since 1921. And I'm going to read the statement that was given. I know better. Read the statement that was turned into paper. So, the Delaware County Municipal Police Accountability Coalition Media Working Group. We, the undersigned business owners, clergy members, community leaders, and residents of Media Borough are united in expressing our strong support for the Media Borough Council's decision to demote and terminate the employment of Officer Robert Skippy Carroll. Officer Carroll betrayed his profession and the public trust when he posted threats via social media against business persons that chose to speak out against the police. Officer Carroll also posted an ominous public warning that could have been directed at any person, business, or community institution daring to speak out against police abuse or on behalf of Black Lives Matter. Try us, we'll destroy you. No public safety officer who is paid by our tax dollars, equipped with taxpayer-funded weapons, and entrusted with the life and death decision-making power on the streets of our community can be permitted to publicly threaten to destroy anyone and expect to remain on the public payroll. Officer Carroll's act of intimidation tarnished the image of the other men and women on the Media Borough Police Force who strive to serve our community with integrity. Should Officer Carroll appeal council's decision and seek to retain his position, we believe the evidence supports his removal. The decision by Borough Council was made to ensure the physical safety and psychological well-being of our entire community, not simply as a response to a mundane employer-employee dispute. Our chief of police characterized council's decision to demote and fire Carroll as absurd. We believe that council's decision was fair, just, and the proper stewardship of public dollars. Everybody's hometown needs to be safe for every stakeholder, no matter their ethnic background, religion, race, or political view. And just in general, their job is extremely difficult. We completely get that. But if anybody is held to a standard of like stellar conduct, it would have to be a police officer. The expectation that they are appropriate in all areas, all manners, all instances, it's not an idea, it is a thing. It's a concept and it must be upheld or else it's just a problem. So.
Thank you. Carol, if you want
My name is Carol Grover. I live at 306 South Avenue in Media. We've been in this area since 1973, from 73 to 79. We lived in Lima on Pennell Road. Following the death of our son, we moved to South Carolina and came to Media in 1983. This is dedicated to my husband. And I too am feeling very, very comfortable with your decision to dismiss with the intention to fire Officer Carroll. I'm here in support of you and your decision, and I'd like for you to walk a day in our lives. So I might be a little longer than 3 minutes, but I think I can get it done in 5. This is called Episodes in the Life of a Shallow Breather. A shallow breather is a person that deals with stress so frequently in their life they develop a pattern of breathing that it's short pants. And what it does over time is it can cause a lot of things like lung damage, and it's caused by stress, continual stress in their life. So this is Episodes in the Life of a Shallow Breather. And this is episode 1, and it happened in Pennsylvania. The beginning of shallow breathing. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Good. By the way, I'm going to ask you just to give me a yay or a nay at the end. That's all. And I'd like to count them. It may have begun in his school age years or with an incident in 1959. At the age of 19, while he was riding in his car with his older brother in West Philadelphia, he was pulled over and they were charged with driving in a stolen car. It actually was their car. They were thrown in the back of a paddy wagon. But before they did that, they searched the car and they found a kid's baseball bat. They were taken to jail, tossed around in the paddy wagon, and they were charged with weapons. That charge stayed on his record. Through his adult years, he didn't even realize it was there until he was well in his 50s. This is episode 2, the county seat. This happened in Media, the courthouse. 20 years later, in 1979, the death of our 15-year-old son significantly contributed to that shallow breathing. Our son was riding his bike to deliver newspapers. Biff, as we called him, was struck by a drunk driver. A white male who lived in the community was charged. Shallow breathing was now accompanied by a visible changing skin color. It wasn't one time brown, it turned gray. Obviously gray, and depression was very easy to see. Life goes on with the pain and loss, an open investigation, work obligations, and the panic it all encompasses. Maybe a change of surroundings would help. So we went south to South Carolina. The move ended up creating more confusion than anticipated. Failure to calculate the impact of the emotional trauma from driving back and forth for court dates, some which were even canceled en route, was difficult to handle. And before long, we realized that wasn't the right move. And so the short version of that episode was as follows. Although the accused was seen in the neighborhood days prior to the 4th of July, drinking at local bars and establishments, and he admitted no one else drives his car, he left the scene of the crash. The impression of his damaged car antenna matched Biff's head injuries,
In that area of 452 South Kennel Road, where traffic northbound and southbound would pass the point of impact approximately every 6 seconds at approximately the time of the crash, no one came forward to place him in or near the car. And the guy was acquitted of all charges. So that was episode 2. On episode 3, Media Borough, approximately 2,000, somewhere about there, a familiar diner. 2 years was enough to recognize the important resource that an extended family support system has on healing illnesses and grief. Although the quietness of his shallow breathing remained, it was becoming apparent that some signs of deep stress and sadness were decreasing until one morning we had breakfast out at a familiar spot in Media. It was a busy morning. Our booth was next to one occupied by a seated couple conversing with the Media Borough uniformed police officer standing in the aisle. Although the full conversation of the two in the booth we could not hear because the couple spoke with softer tones. However, the officer commented quite confidently, knowing we were in his presence, "I would like to fill Chester with gasoline and light a match." Sid literally got sick. And so the short version of that episode was as follows. Although the accused was seen in, no, I'm sorry, 4, 5, he showed, this is the officer, he showed no remorse whatsoever for his racially insensitive comment. There seemed to be no discussion with those in the group, letting him know we were behind him. He seemed rather confident. An immediate sense of fear and degradation came over us, both combined with wonder and dismay. Who would protect us if he was the one that had to do it? Episode 4, a nearby borough and a county seat. By 2004, managing shallow breathing and related stress was a continual process, however. The next episode is still, to this day, difficult. I was a principal at one of the schools in that area. It was my last day. I was coming home at the end of the summer, and Sid came to meet me to bring some heavy objects home. Flashing lights appeared, signaling him to pull over. He was driving behind me. I did the same, pulling over ahead of him. I got out of my car and I walked to the middle of the street, the middle of the road, and I watched as the 2 police officers pulled him over, and by the time he parked, there were 4 other police cars around him from neighboring boroughs. 2 police officers came over to his car. They got up, they walked to him, and in 4 seconds, they started shouting, "Get out of the car, put your hands on the wheel." Sid was confused. He was disoriented. He said, "What did I do?" One of the officers said, "The dollar store was robbed. Get your license out." Sid looked at him and said, "And you're looking for a black man?" With those words coming out of his mouth, a barrage of F's and N-words followed. And we were shocked. One of the officers was a chief of the neighboring borough. I'm on 4. I'm sorry. This one had to do with the county seat once more. Oh, I can tell you. I know it so well. We were so incensed by the time they let us go. We decided we weren't going to be quiet. We were going to see what resources we could get to help us with that incident. So we called the courthouse and made an appointment with the county liaison office. And we met a few days later. We went up there, and there were 2 people in the room, a large table, lots of chairs, and on the table was a picture. I walked over to sit near the desk, and I happened to look down at the picture, and it was the picture of our house with our cars in front of it. This is my question for you. Would you have done what we did? Yes, if you would have walked out. No, if you would have engaged conversation.
No.
Can I see yeses? It's hard, isn't it? Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to talk on this topic? Thank you very much for coming out and sharing some very painful.
There are some other people that want to talk.
And we have received your petition. Thank you very much for it. Anybody else who wishes to speak to council about a matter that is not on our agenda this evening?
May we free up some seats for people who?
Oh, yeah, sure.
I'd like to address the council. Hello, everyone. My name is Michelle Pizzano. You probably have never seen me here before because this is not my thing. So I understand it's very difficult for me. I live, can I leave my address out for now?
You can tell me.
Privately? Mm-hmm. Okay. I will just say I live in the borough.
It'll be in the minutes, though.
Okay.
I don't need your house number.
Okay. I live in the borough. I'm on East Jefferson Street. Yesterday at approximately 3:30, I had a package delivered from USPS, the Postal Service. At the same time, I had a political sign stolen from my front lawn, near the porch. I have followed a police report. My concern is if someone working in our borough, in our post office, does not agree with someone's political views, and they're stealing your political signs, are they going to steal your ballots? There is a police report on this. I do plan to follow up. It's a very strong accusation. The council should know about this, not only in a public relations standpoint, an election standpoint, in everybody's hometown, as you said, regardless of what your political affiliation is. For the first time in my life, I am getting a hard-wired security system, and not only the front and the back of the house. And I also need to
reflect on how I feel about the Second Amendment. So over the next couple of months, I do believe that there's going to be some tensions. I have the right to feel safe. Unfortunately, as far as I know, on a state and a federal level, your political views is not a protected class. But I'm afraid in my own home, and I live in the borough, and I'm not alone. So if there's going to be more vandalism, theft, concern, you guys need to know about it. And I am not going to sit down, and I'm not going to let this happen again. So if anyone would like, go over to the police department. You can talk to them about it.
All right,
Thank
thank you, Mr. Donovan. Anyone else wish to address council at this time about a non-agenda item? Yes. Please, stand.
I didn't know you were saying that. I actually wanted to speak about Sergeant Carroll, but we were out in the hallway and couldn't get in quick enough. So, if you don't mind.
I don't mind.
My name is Kelly Sides. I live on Monroe, right here in the borough, and I'm here to speak on behalf of Sergeant Carroll. I'm not going to sit here and say that I agree with how he phrased his statement on social media. Okay. I will, however, say that during this time when police officers' food and beverages and things that they purchase while they are working or in uniform are being tampered with, and chemicals are being put into them, and they are constantly being threatened with violence, and their families are being threatened. The fact that Sergeant Carroll stated that he would make sure that none of his people, paraphrasing, I apologize, would visit that establishment. That's justified. The way he said it, maybe not. But giving that information to others is completely appropriate. Understand that our officers right now have to be careful with what they're purchasing. So if an establishment appears to be biased against police officers or has the potential to harm them, they absolutely need to know this. Okay? While this could have been handled better, we need to realize that contrary to popular belief, they are not perfect. They are human. They make mistakes. They speak out of turn. They get upset. They are under stress, anxiety. All of those are very, very high. Furthermore, nowhere in his post did he mention Black Lives Matter. That is false. Okay? So, not only are these officers having their integrity and their character attacked on a daily basis, but they are walking around with targets on their backs, as well as their families. Their families are also being threatened. Okay? The fact that an officer, after 25 years of dedicated service, did not receive support from Borough Council is not the least bit surprising. They didn't even... The fact of the matter is, Council didn't even see fit to read through all of the emails or comments in support of Sergeant Carroll, which is completely unacceptable, unfair, and one-sided. The fact of the matter is, not only was this man demoted and terminated after 25 years of service for no other reason than to appease a handful of residents, because I believe the protest had about 60 people. The petition to have him removed, yes, had over 6,000. We don't even have that many people in the borough. Okay, so how many people from the actual borough felt the same way? It was a knee-jerk reaction. He was not given fair treatment. He was not given a fair, unbiased investigation. The punishment that he received absolutely did not fit the crime. And now, because of all of that, any lawsuits or arbitrations, he's going to win, and it is going to cost the taxpayers even more money than just giving him what he has already earned, what he spent his career building so that he can continue to support his family.
Thank you, Ms. Sykes. We cannot comment on this is a matter that's in litigation. We cannot comment on the matters that are in litigation. I can tell you that all 7 members of council were satisfied with our investigation. We did indeed investigate. We did indeed read all of the emails, whether they were in favor or against the decision.
Transparency.
I'm sorry? Oh, sorry folks, there's a voice from stage right, stage left. But we simply, because it is a litigated matter, we simply cannot comment. Thank you very much for your thoughts. Does anybody else wish to address council? Mr. Straw.
Michael Straw, 29 West Jefferson Street, apartment 507, Media Borough. Today is Constitution Day. It's an important day for us all, and one of the 10 amendments in the Bill of Rights includes freedom of speech. And in that First Amendment, the freedom of speech, comes the ability to speak freely in public, and the ability to voice your opinions and your thoughts, and for the public to hear your thoughts. And during the firing of Sergeant Skippy Carroll, I don't think that necessarily occurred. I felt that people that were in favor or opposed to the decision that council made were not read out for the public to hear. And the fact of the matter is even though they're put in the meeting minutes aren't read for the public to see for several weeks after until they're approved by you. So none of us know what the rest of the public has to say. Therefore, they should be read out for the public to hear in a Zoom setting, just like how I'm saying it now, or however anybody else has stated their public comments. Exactly how they were written and how they were said. Because the minority has a right to be heard just as the majority does. And sometimes, even when the entire council has one viewpoint, the minority has to be heard from another perspective, and that is from the public. And if the public's viewpoint is not mentioned, then that second viewpoint has nowhere to be aired or heard. And that is why I would recommend that in any future Zoom meetings or any future deliberations that are open to the public, that any comments that are sent via email or via phone be read for the public to be heard entirely.
Thank you very much for your suggestion. As much as we would like to read every email that we have, we simply do not have time to read 60, 70, however many emails that we do receive. We receive emails both for and against the position. The decision that we took, those emails are attached to the meeting minutes. So if anybody wishes to read them, they may.
I would like to mention that our election board in this county read over 1,000 comments about ballot boxes, about emergency alarms for scanning machines, and a host of other issues. They read them out loud for all the public to hear, and I think that this Borough Council could have at least read the 7 comments that was stated on that Zoom call. 7 comments, 4 against, and 3 for the firing of Sergeant Skippy Carroll. It's 7 comments. The 55 comments were made, was already stated, they didn't necessarily heard. 7, and they should have been heard. We are borough residents, and borough residents in this town should also hear what their peers have to say when there's only one perspective that is brought up on this borough, just like the election board did. And that's just a fact. And that should have been done. And I think that our First Amendment rights were somewhat curtailed in that sort of setting.
Thank you, Mr. Straw. Anybody else wish to address council at this time?
I do. I wanted to mention the Black Lives Matter comment. That didn't have anything to do with the situation about the internet. That was actually something that happened with the principal of Media Elementary School and some parents. And it had to do with a parent bringing they may have been Black Lives Matter T-shirts, something, and a lot of the kids did choose to put them on, and he had a problem with them wearing them because he felt it was politically motivated, and that their parents would not agree. And it was a discussion, albeit if the principal chose not to share it with the parents at the time it was going on, because her whole thing was to de-escalate. She just didn't want a lot of drama. But that is what that was about. That didn't have anything to do with the comments on the net. And I'm clear on what the business owner said and the rest, and I completely get it. But I don't know how you guys work out who has counseling. A lot of officers have PTSD, which makes perfect sense. And I get that completely. But when you are weaponized, whether you agree or not, because it does matter. And even as teachers, we have to think about the things that we say to other people's kids. As an officer, you have to think about every single move you make, whether you're trying to rally some folks doing stuff they have no business, whether you are making public statements and social media is nothing but public. So before we react or do anything, everything that comes out of our mouths, if we are paid public employees, if we're municipal employees, is going to directly affect our families one way or the other. So that means that you make a choice. You can fall out and be upset. People are throwing stuff at cops, doing all kinds of foolishness. I get that completely. But what comes out of your mouth and your conduct, this is media borough, this is everybody's hometown. I know darn near everybody here. Some of you guys I've never met, but I know you. So it matters what you say and how you react. And your example, folks are watching. And it is jacked up. And the whole process is a hot mess. But it is what it is, and it was a choice that he made. That's all. That's the bottom line.
Ms. Graham.
I get it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
That seems like it's more, I'm glad you guys are talking to each other. That's a conversation that I think that you can have outside of the
No, I get that, but I just wanted to make sure that I made it clear. It wasn't what I said, and he didn't say that.
I think he did.
He did not.
I believe the gentleman in the back wished to make a comment.
Hi, my name is Evan Zaremba. I live on Jefferson Street in the borough. Thank you for having me tonight. I'm the one who was organizing the No Mask rally that was supposed to happen last night. I did have a nice conversation with the chief of police. I was really kind of disappointed and shocked that that you guys had the audacity to try and fine somebody $1,000 for wearing a mask, for walking down the street. It's just disgusting to think that in this country, I thought this is America, this is a free country. You don't have the right to do that. So, I did have a conversation with Mayor Bob earlier. He said that the ordinance was written wrong. He said that, it should be a $50 fine or a $100 fine. It shouldn't be any fine.
So I think you're getting confused, and the mayor, with all due respect, this is a citation, it's not a ticket. When you get a parking ticket, you get a $5 fine, a $10 fine. With a citation, you're given a citation for not wearing a mask. We, the borough, the police, we don't levy any monetary value to that citation. You go to a judge. So you have
you're inconveniencing people.
So the judge will then, so the judge would sit there and determine from 0 to 1,000. So I think it's not saying it's a $5 fine or a $10 fine. It could be a 0. So it's not that to tell people you're going to get a $1,000 fine is not an accurate statement.
Okay.
So that's why I just want to make sure you,
Okay, no,
many people get that confused, like $1,000, and it's not $1,000. There are ordinances on our books that say that in certain situations you can be fined $1,000 a day. Doesn't mean you're going to be fined that $1,000 a day.
Okay.
It is the maximum. So I just want to make sure that because there are things that frustrate me,
Yeah.
is that people misrepresent and miscommunicate when it's not a $1,000 fine, it's a citation. This is not a ticket with a set dollar amount to it.
Okay.
All right.
And with that clarification, Mrs. Rumba, you wish to continue your comment?
Well, I just don't think that you should have the right to give anybody any monetary citation for walking down the street without a mask. It just seems ridiculous. I mean, the businesses there are,
We can't. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
We can't. When it is a public street, tonight when you walk home, you can take
So
your mask
I walk down dining under the stars right now.
Let me finish.
Okay.
When you walk down a public street, you have every right not to wear your mask. That is a constitutional right that you do have.
Okay.
Dining under the stars, or dining or whatever they want to call it this year, when State Street or any, quote, mass gathering permit is issued, under that ordinance, there are rules and regulations pertaining to that mass gathering permit.
Okay.
That is when you are not permitted to be on State Street without a mask. If you want to walk down State Street now, tomorrow, anytime other than when the mass gathering permit is in effect, you are 100%.
No, I understand that. I'm talking about walking
That's
down
what we're
dining
saying.
under the stars.
There's a difference. So, I mean, you've come here tonight, and I am frustrated with this, so I'll explain. You come here tonight talking about not having the right not to wear a mask, when it's not going to affect you. You not wearing a mask is not going to affect you. It will affect the other people that you are around. That's what we're all here for. We've said 100 times tonight, media, everyone's hometown. We take care of each other. If I know someone's sick, if I'm sick, I'm not going to go and try to get someone else that's sick. That's what this is all about, is just trying to make sure. And in a mass gathering permit, we do have rules and regulations that ensure safety for all. If you are the constitutionalist that you say you are, then you should have been here years ago, because at the same mass gathering permit, at the same dining in the stores, guess what you get a citation for? Having a dog.
Okay.
So if you think it's that bad that we're taking away your constitutional rights because you can't have your dog during a mass gathering permit, you haven't done anything about that. But when not wearing a mask can kill somebody and kill your neighbor, I get upset. So I'm not saying, constitutionally you have every right when it is not a closed environment, meaning a mass gathering permit where there are special rules to protect everybody. That's all this is about. It's not taking away somebody's constitutional. If you're talking about that, then we have speed limits. We have safety belt requirements. We have more regulations. We have to pay taxes.
So when does it end?
That's up to you. But I mean, with this, I want to sit there and say, I want to make sure I can do everything I can do, even if it's a 1% chance, to make sure that my neighbor doesn't get sick.
Do you drive?
Pardon me?
Do you drive?
Yes, I drive.
Okay. Do you know that people have killed in car accidents?
All right, if we would go down that road, we could be here for the rest of the night. So, I mean, I would sit there and say, part of it is because, part of the reason people are killed in car accidents is because they don't obey current laws.
It seems to me, gentlemen, that we might be getting off
I
that
am.
point.
I state my case, I just feel that
Is there
this is
any
something,
other point that you wish to make?
No, I'm good.
Is anybody else who hasn't spoken yet who wishes to speak? Yes.
My name is Nicole Massino. I own Giovanni's Media Barbershop. I actually live in Springfield. The address there is 18 South Olive. I also wanted to comment on this. I don't want to get into an argument with you, but my thing with the masks is, I opened, as most of you probably know, I did buy the order, and I opened on May 20th. I wear my mask when I'm at work because I want to have respect for the people that are coming into my business because I don't know who doesn't want to wear a mask and who, wants to wear a mask. I do not require any of my clients that come in to do anything that they don't want to do. I do not require them to put a mask on if they do not want to put a mask on. So the mask thing, I don't understand the difference between, all right, I'm walking to the restaurant, I've got my mask on, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to take my mask off and I'm going to eat. I can't get COVID when I'm sitting, but when I'm walking around, I can get it. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, I get like if we're doing the huge events, like, the big street festivals. When people wear masks on, I'm in the stores, there's not that many people there, and I think it's hurting the restaurants.
The restaurants are the one that have been asking for it.
Well, I seem to disagree with that because I've been contacted by several of the business owners. They're all terrified to say anything. They're all terrified to come to these meetings. So, I don't think that we should be making people walk around outside with masks on.
You just said that they're not, only in a mass gathering permit.
But we're outside during Dining Under the Stars. There's not a ton of people walking around for that. You're literally just walking to go to a restaurant. It's not a street festival like, Super Sunday. Super Sunday is huge.
Mr. Mayor, how many people, what's the largest group of people at Dining Under the Stars that we've had recently?
Last Saturday night, we had 1,400 people. They dinner, or Saturday before, we had 1,400 people.
It's a lot.
It's just a little consideration for your neighbors.
I mean, if we can't social distance walking down the street, then that's a problem. And that's what the governor's mandate states. It states that you cannot social distance.
And if you do realize that our sidewalks are like 7 feet wide,
But 1,400 people when you have 4 blocks, that's a lot of people.
Thank you very much for your comment. I'll offer this. We are local government, and that we are the bottom of the totem pole of government. In local government, you've got county government, you have state government, you have federal government. We don't have a health department. We don't have the resources that larger governments do. But when we are thinking about what we can do to protect our residents, of course, we would look to advice from organizations or an organization that is considered to be the premier organization in terms of infectious disease control and epidemiology. That's the CDC. And the CDC says, this is their recommendation. I'm not an epidemiologist. I'm not a board certified infectious disease expert. But if I'm going to look for some type of guidance as to how it is, I look at the CDC. And the CDC recommends, and I'll read it. People wear masks in public settings and when around people who don't live in your household, especially when other social distancing measures are difficult to maintain. Masks may help prevent people who have COVID-19 from spreading the virus to others. Masks are most likely to reduce the spread of COVID-19 when they are widely used by people in public settings. So if you were to ask me, why is it that we have passed this ordinance that allows us to cite folks who are walking at mass gathering permitted events, they're mass gathering permitted events. Why it is that we want them to wear masks is because our chief authority, the world recognized authority, tells us that's precisely what it is that we ought to be wearing masks. It's a matter of consideration for our residents. It's a matter of consideration for business owners that we just wear a mask, just like everybody is doing here today. That's what we ought to be doing. Now, if there are folks that insist on not wearing masks to make some type of a point, understand we're not doing this to make a political point. We're here to try to ensure public health of our residents and our visitors. That's our role. If there's somebody who thinks that they're okay without wearing a mask or a mask gathering event, our police department, which is experienced and professional, will take them aside and let them know that we do have this ordinance, ask them nicely to wear a mask. If they persist in not wearing a mask, then that person runs the risk of being cited. And as Councilman Robinson has pointed out, we're not the ones who levy a fine. It just means that you now have an invitation to go see the magistrate judge. The magistrate judge will then decide whether or not a fine is warranted. But that's all we're trying to do. We're asking people to take that very modest measure to help protect their friends, their neighbors, other people who are in town. That's all we're trying to do. If some folks think that's too much, I've got to disagree with you. But I think that speaking with friends and neighbors who live in media, they support this, and they support it strongly.
And to be completely where I'm out, walking the dog and stuff like that, I don't have wear me, so I'll have one with me. So I'm not sitting here saying I'm not, wear a mask 24 hours a day type of thing. But when you are close to people, and I think that I could hurt somebody else, then the only thing I'm trying to do is to say, it's to me, it's as simple as a sign of respect for the other person. That I'm trying to do my best to make sure I don't get you sick. If I'm out walking the dog at 6 o'clock in the morning and there's no one around, I know I'm not going to affect somebody. So, and I don't know if I have it. I don't think a lot of people know if they have it. And to me, it's just more of a line of a sign of respect for your neighbor and the person that you're encountering walking down the street. That's what it is. So, and if it was carrying a 100-pound weight on your back, it might be one thing, but wearing a cloth mask here and there, I don't think is that much to ask.
Is there anybody else who hasn't spoken yet, who wishes to speak? Mr. Straw, before we get to you, Ms. Karen, did we receive anything, whether by phone or by email?
I don't think so. Check. If we want to talk. No, nothing.
Okay, good. So now we have the opportunity for seconds. If anybody wishes to address council about a matter that hasn't already been discussed, now's the time to do it.
I just had a couple of comments just to bounce off of what was just said. A lot of what you said right there, Brian, I agree with. I completely agree with. But one thing that really turned me off was in your statement that the borough released regarding the levying of the ordinance in terms of the enforcement. It went directly to basically say, we're going to shut down the event. And I wouldn't have done that and scare businesses and scare restaurants right off the bat, thinking that, oh my gosh, the main revenue source for us at the moment is suddenly at risk. I get that as a little bit over the line. I think we could have done a little bit of a better job and not gone all the way into an ultimatum situation. That's just a comment. And one of the questions I had actually was, were there other meters in terms of the amount that were discussed for the fine? Because at the moment, it is at a maximum of 1,000. I know there were other places around this Commonwealth that chose different amounts, 500, 250, 50. Were there other decisions? Because 1,000 seems a little bit to the normal person outrageous. Because when you blow through a stop sign, you're likely to kill someone instantly, and it's only 150. So 1,000, that's a lot.
Well, this is,
But this is all as you, and I know that you work for the state, so you should be aware of this more than anybody. I'm the one, the $1,000 reference is probably on the overwhelming majority of citations type ordinances in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And I think you probably agree with me on that. I can do studies for you if you want. We can do this offline. But I mean, once again, it can be zero. And as a member of the business authority, I mean, the business authority were the ones that came to council and said, we need to do something. We do not feel comfortable with people walking down. So I get confused because I get the impression that the business authority members were the ones that encouraged the council to take further action because they were becoming frustrated because volunteering or asking people to do the right thing had either people were rude to business people when they simply said, would you please put on a mask, to the point of close to physical violence with certain individuals that were simply politely asking if they would put on a mask.
I just know that there were several businesses that, because I frequent many businesses.
So do I.
And I just know that there were several that were not necessarily happy with the wording of that statement.
And the great thing about democracy, I would say just as many businesses or more applauded us for the action.
All right, gentlemen. the end of public comment. Thank everyone for coming and participating in your democracy. We will have executive session, so if there are no